This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about dinosaurs, political celebrities, and bad ventriloquism. All that and more as we watch Season 6, Episode 12 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. I'm one of your hosts. Joining me every episode, my sister, Sophia. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you? Welcome back to you and to your voice. Your voice did a little magic trick for a while and disappeared.
Yeah, speaking of magic for this episode, my voice did a great magic trick, disappeared for about over 2 weeks.
Sorry, we've been on a little unexpected hiatus because we had only one voice instead of two.
Little viral laryngitis hit this cousin and took out my vocal cords. But you can tell, I mean, I'm like 80% back. You can still hear it a little bit. If you're in our Facebook group, I did post this, and I asked for a Meposian cure for laryngitis, and people suggested, you know what I thought they would, fresh yak spleen.
Make sure you keep the parsley in it, though.
Oh, yeah. The parsley is important. Never take the parsley out. Some fish parts and herbs. Kick it up a notch with some wolfsbane and pumpkin mold.
We did also debate me just doing an episode by myself, but I didn't think that would be very entertaining for our listeners. But if you ever want to hear that, comment and let us know. I don't know if it's just one of us without the other, if it's going to be as fun. But
solo episodes are also kind of hard too when you have nobody to like bounce off of. It's just more fun to do it with somebody.
My thoughts on many tangents.
But look, I'm back.
You don't want that.
My voice has reappeared from the void.
Yay.
For the most part. Ta-da!
Ta-da! Your voice has magically reappeared, and that is so apt for our comeback episode when we discuss Perfect Strangers Season 6, Episode 12, entitled Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus. We have to read it in a Balky voice.
Hocus Pocus. Yeah,
Hocus
you just have to.
Pocus.
And, that's just the things you say while performing magic.
What is the origin of that phrase, Hocus Pocus?
There's phrases like abracadabra, Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
Alakazam, and you'll see Balky messed that up.
Yes.
I don't know where it came from, but it's magic. It's a magic slang.
It's a magic slang, which means this episode has something to do with magic. Let's find out. If you were to open the TV guide when this episode aired, you would read the following description. Larry skips a charity show to find a story and then learns that a bigwig is making a surprise appearance. That's like almost accurate. In the end, he doesn't skip the show. We'll find out.
There's no magic mentioned. It's kind of vague.
Anyway, the point is Larry needs a story and there's some kind of charity magic show. Yes.
We have our dynamic duo, Bronson Pinchot as Balky, Marklin Baker as Larry, and then a bunch of guest casts appearing. But that's all we see from our running cast is just the cousins. This episode airing December 28th. 1990, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Almost to the end of the year.
We're going to be celebrating into 91. It was a new decade. Very exciting.
Very exciting.
And of course, all the episodes are streaming on Amazon Freebie. So you can watch them binge along. Freebie.
Yeah.
That's the jingle, right?
That's the jingle.
We just heard it. Freebie. Ta-da!
I bet you sing along every time. Freebie. What's the Netflix one? Ta-dum.
Ta-dum. Yeah, it's literally the word ta-dum.
Ta-dum. All right. Hocus Pocus, Act 1.
Ta-da! It's called The Aristocrats. Oh, that's different. Sorry. This is a punchline to a different joke.
I said.
Razzle dazzle him with Act 1, sister.
Okay, Act 1, we start at the apartment, and Balky is practicing some magic tricks for an audience of one, and that audience is none other than our beloved Dimitri.
Yay, Dimitri's in the show. He's on a stool watching Balky do magic in the middle
Dimitri,
of the...
not a portrait, but the actual Dimitri.
It's great to see him.
And Balky's talking to him, and he's telling him, watch closely, and he's standing, and there's like all this like magic trick stuff around, and
He's holding something covered in a red cloth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And then he pulls off the red cloth and it's like a little souffle pan.
Yes.
And Balky's like, we have here a souffle plan. Souffle plan.
Souffle plan?
Souffle plan.
Souffle plan.
That's hard to say.
Souffle
pan. Say that 10 times.
Pan.
Souffle pan.
Souffle slan.
Souffle slan. This is how we're going to make all of these episodes entertaining.
Yes.
Okay.
Just silliness.
So
Take
he's
your
like,
mind
this
off
is
the
not
world.
ordinary pan. We have to say, and he like waves his hands over it and he says the magic words, except he says them like this: Abracapocus, Ilia Kazan, and flambe. And then these flames come out from the inside of the pan. How did he do that? And it takes him by surprise even, and he falls back on the couch. How did he do that?
The flames go out and he has to grab the top of the souffle pan.
Yes.
Souffle plan to put it out, and then he opens and he takes the top off, and then it's all like tissue paper flowers flying out of there.
Whoa,
so it goes from fire
magician
to paper flowers all in a matter of seconds. Very impressive. And then he walks over to Dimitri. It's really cute. He picks him up and he makes Dimitri applaud.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this.
Abracapocus, Ilia Kazan.
And flambe. So I love all this.
Oh.
First of all, Abracapocus, he mushed this together. Abracadabra and Hocus Pocus. Ilia Kazan, I was like, that sounds like a person. I think he was trying to say Alakazam.
Alakazam.
And then flambe is reference to the fire and the cooking method. So, and he says this a couple of times in the episode. And he keeps saying Ilia Kazan. I'm like, wait a minute. I know Ilia Kazan is a dude. Who is Ilia Kazan? Yes, he's a very important dude. A very important film and theater director that worked from the 30s to the late 60s.
He lived till almost 100 years old.
Yes, passed away in 2003, described by the New York Times as one of the most honored, influential directors in Broadway and Hollywood history. Mm-hmm. Ilia Kazan directed Streetcar Named Desire in 51 and On the Waterfront in 54, both starring Marlon Brando. Kind of discovered him on stage. And East of Eden in 55, a huge... what's that dude's name? I can't remember anybody's name.
James Dean.
James Dean in East of Eden. Anyways, he won 2 Oscars, Best Director, 3 Tony Awards, 4 Golden Globe Awards. He was known for bringing out the best performances from his actor. He directed 21 actors to Oscar nominations, 9 of them winning those nominations.
Wow.
So,
Abracapocus, Ilia Kazan.
Ilia Kazan, yes. Pretty much discovered like a young Brando on stage and brought him into movies.
So we have this reference twice in this episode, the same line, but now we know who that is. And then enter Larry, and he's coming in, looks like he's coming in from work. He's got his jacket on, his briefcase, and he looks tired and frustrated. And Balky says, "You just missed a great magic trick by the Great Balkini." That's his magician name.
Yeah, of course.
The Great Balkini. And Larry just sighs and goes, "Life is so unfair sometimes." And Balky's like, "I could do it again." We're about to find out why Larry is like so sad and dejected. But in the meantime, they sit down on the couch. And while they're having this exchange, Balky is like doing some pretty like magic shop, cheapy magic tricks with like this black plastic wand and stuff like that. And so he's like waving this wand around and he's like, "It's okay. You'll see plenty of magic tonight. Here's the premise. The Amazing Timmy," part of the premise. "The Amazing Timmy is performing at the Youth Center Charity Show."
Yes, there's a Youth Center Charity Show. Amazing Timmy magician. And Balky goes, ping, and he hits Larry on the head with the wand. At which point, Larry grabs the wand from the middle, and the whole thing just goes limp in his hand.
Yeah.
It's a trick wand, right?
Yes.
So he tosses it on the couch behind him. So basically, there's dialogue happening, which is okay. We'll give you the brief. But the main thing is there's a series of magic tricks going back and forth. Balky doing a trick as Larry looks on, tries to figure out how he does it, and attempts to do it unsuccessfully.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it was fun and like a fun little opening gag, but I didn't find it very believable because the trick that Balky's doing during this next bit of dialogue is like with this like handkerchief thing that very obviously he's manipulating with his thumb on the far side from the camera, on the side that the camera can't see, but Larry is seated on that side, so he would have been able to see what he was doing. But then the joke for the episode is that Larry keeps taking the handkerchief to try to do the same gag
while they're talking. So you've seen that trick where you pull a handkerchief up straight between your hands, and then Balky pretends to pluck a hair off his head, wrap it around the top, and then move it, and the tip of the handkerchief moves, right? And then Larry watches it. He tries it, and then fails. He pulls it up, and it just flops. And it goes back and forth.
From where he's sitting on the couch, he would have had clear view of what he was doing.
No, he's seeing it how we're seeing it from camera side.
But it doesn't make sense in my head because
so then Balky does it again. He watches, and then Larry grabs it again and actually plucks a hair out of Balky's head. It's kind of funny.
Goes, ow.
What the context is, Larry is refusing to go to this charity show. He is discouraged because
he has been trying to find a big scoop and a big story all week. And he's got nothing, and he's afraid Wainwright's going to fire him.
Wainwright's on him for getting a big story. He's got no ideas. And he's like, if I don't come up with something, I'm going to be writing an obituary for my own career. To which Balky goes, well, at least you be writing something, which I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. So while they're having this, and it's kind of like padded out. So it goes on for a while. But the magic trick part with Balky doing the pulling of the thing is hilarious.
Yeah. And so Balky wants him to go to this charity show because, of course, Balky is involved with youth charities. It makes sense. Larry tells him to take photos, like kind of sarcastically. He's like, because Balky's like, you're going to be missing a show. He's like, oh, take photos. And Balky gets up and he says he has to go get ready. But before he leaves the scene for his bedroom, he tells Larry to cheer up and that he'll come up with something for a story.
He has another magic wand in his hand that he's waving in front of Larry's face.
Yeah, and Larry's like, no, I don't have any ideas. I have no stories. And Balky waves this wand and he's like, you never know. Life is full of surprises. And he taps Larry's head and he goes ping again with the wand. And then Larry grabs the wand kind of out of frustration to pull it out, to grab it from Balky's hand. But when he pulls it, the wand comes open into this bouquet of flowers.
Yeah, it's another trick wand. And Larry's like, how did you do that? And Balky starts to leave to the bedroom because, well, I can't tell you for two reasons. Number one, I'd be violating the code of magicians. And number two, I have no idea. And he walks in. So these tricks, it's funny. I don't know if you remember. I kind of wanted to do magic when I was little.
You had a magic
Remember,
kit.
There was like this box of 101 magic tricks you can learn in this box.
Where did you get that?
It was probably mail order from behind a comic book. Or there were magic shops in Chicago.
There were magic shops, yeah.
And they had like the trick box where the coin disappears. And I also tried ventriloquism by ordering a dummy. But this reminds me of me buying that little magic box.
Yeah.
Because there's like...
Magic is cool.
The smoke from your fingers, there's actually like a little ointment. Like you put it on your fingers and you rub it and it turns into smoke. There's like flash paper. Oh my God, it was all toxic stuff. Yeah. But I feel like Balky just bought that magic box in the magic shop. They're cute, like preset magic tricks.
But they didn't have
No, the flambe. Yeah, the souffle flambe thing. That was impressive. I don't know how they do. It might be flash paper. There's something called flash paper that ignites, but I don't know. I don't know where the paper flowers came from afterwards.
Okay, so Balky leaves the scene, and just then there's a knock at the door, and Larry answers it, and there's this older woman. She says hello. She's British. She does
have a British accent.
Yes. Older woman.
Light British accent.
And Larry seems to know who she is. He says, oh, hello, Mrs. O'Neill. And she has come by to drop off programs for Balky to bring to the show, like a little stack of programs.
Mrs. O'Neill.
And Larry's like, okay, I'll give it to Balky. And then she stays a little too long, says a little too much. What she says is, oh, organizing this charity show is so much work. Oh, I have to make the seating arrangements, talk to the lighting man, and now the Secret Service men are driving me just crazy about Margaret Thatcher stopping by.
What? And just then, Larry's eyes bug out. You almost can see a light bulb go off over his head. He needs a story. A story has just landed in his lap.
She catches herself. She says, oh, you didn't hear that. And Larry's like, Margaret Thatcher, the ex-prime minister of Great Britain. So this is going to be his big story because he's just hungry for a story.
In 1990, Margaret Thatcher just...
The story is that Margaret Thatcher... Yeah.
Margaret Thatcher was prime minister from 1979 to 1990. She had just left the position. Is she touring the country? I don't know. He needs a story. randomly Margaret Thatcher is showing up.
Well, it's not that random because Mrs. O'Neill says it is, but we'll talk about that later. But in the context of the script, Mrs. O'Neill says, "Don't tell anyone. She's doing it for me as a special favor. Mags and I went to school together.
Oh, they went to school.
I promised her there would be no press or television people there. She doesn't want to make a circus out of it, you know?" And Larry's like, "Well, your secret's safe with me." Lying. And as she leaves, she goes, "Remember, mum's the word on Mrs. T." And Larry just goes, "Mum, mum, 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 mum."
And he closes the door and immediately goes, "Yes, yes." And then Bucky walks in and Bucky goes, "Cross it." And Larry just goes, "Yes." And comes down immediately. And Bucky goes, "About that charity show." And Larry just goes, "Okay, I'll come." Oh, Bucky's holding a metal cylinder, a large metal cylinder in his hand at this moment. And Bucky's like, "Come again?" And then Larry gives him a whole little Larry
I'm
Larry
thinking
job.
about the kids, and I've been selfish, putting my career over the happiness of those kids, so I changed my mind, and I'll come. And Bucky gets very excited. He says, "Oh, cousin, now everything's coming up roses." And he pulls the top of the canister off, and it turns into this big bouquet of flowers.
Fake flowers, yeah. Another like preset magic thing you bought.
Okay, hold on one second.
Yes.
So the whole premise now is that Larry wants to go to this show to get an interview with Margaret Thatcher at a children's charity show. Okay, so far it's still making sense. Okay, like the story is this British woman who has resettled in Chicago and runs a children's charity and her old school girlfriend Margaret Thatcher is coming by. Sure, why not? Sure.
Miss O'Neill, by the way, this is also a huge actress. She's got a big pedigree in Hollywood. Her name is Gloria McMillan. And so way back in the 40s, there was a show on the radio called Our Miss Brooks. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it starred Eve Arden, who was a big actress at the time. She was a teenager, played the principal's daughter named Harriet Conklin.
Okay.
At age 13, started on CBS Radio's Our Miss Brooks, which was such a big hit. It ran from 48 to 57 on the radio, and then it became a TV show, ran from 1952 to 55, and then in 1956, Warner Brothers makes a movie
we gotta watch this.
Our Miss Brooks. She acted the same character in all three mediums.
Wow.
She was on the radio, she was on the TV, on the screen. She went on in the late 60s to be on an episode of Dr. Kildare. She was on a show called Smile in 1975. And this appearance is her final credit.
That we know of, but that we can find. Yeah.
Well, she retired and she was teaching. Okay. She had like a dancing school and talent agency.
Okay.
So I think this was her final acting credit, having started at age 13 in radio in 1948.
That may be the most special thing about this episode.
It probably is. So she's an important person in acting that I did not know about. Gloria McMillan.
Thank you for all that. Yeah. Okay. So we cut to the next scene, and now we're in the evening at the recreation center, and we're in the middle of this charity show, and on stage is a ventriloquist with a dummy, with a puppet. And the dummy is doing like the 3 walnut shell trick. Like, where is the pea under the...
Yeah, he's blindfolded. It's very weird. It's like a magic with ventriloquism shoved together.
And the guy's manipulating him and talking in the puppet's voice, but he's not a very good ventriloquist.
They cut back to him later. His lips are moving.
His lips are moving a lot.
But we'll talk about who he is. Anyway, so that's just to establish there is a ventriloquist act going. You see the cousins standing backstage watching.
The wings, yes. And then there's a large man in an earpiece and a black suit who is clearly Secret Service. And Larry goes up to him trying to be cool. He's like, "It's okay. I know you're with Secret Service." And he lies. He says, "I'm handling things for Mrs. O'Neill. Is everything on schedule with Mrs. T?" And the guy just looks at him and rolls his eyes a little. He goes, "Everything's fine." And he's like, "Thanks." And Larry goes, "Roger."
Yeah, Larry goes,
and he
Roger.
Misses the sarcasm.
Yes, he's trying to be all cool and be important. and it's ridiculous. So Larry walks back to Balky and he goes, "Where's Amazing Timmy? He's the last act, isn't he?" And Balky's like, "Oh, he'll be here. He said he told me he has to go to a stag party." And then Balky goes, "That Timmy must love deer."
And Larry tells him that's not what a stag party is, and it has nothing to do with deer. And Balky says, "I beg to quibble with you."
Which I think he meant, "I beg to differ with you." You put quibble in
there. It still works.
It does. Yeah, it's not that.
He goes, "I distinctly remember Timmy telling me that a certain Bambi was going to be jumping out of a cake." And Larry gives up on explaining it and just says, "My mistake."
So can you tell from the context what a stag party is?
It's a bachelor party, but the weird thing is, this is a charity show for children. Okay, so it must be like pretty early in the evening.
They showed the establishing shot. It's nighttime.
Okay,
it's nighttime.
Even so, it's nighttime, but
early
it can't
evening.
be that late at night. Who is having a bachelor party like late afternoon? Maybe back then. That's what they did.
In the evening. You start in the afternoon, a little day drinking, keep it going.
Maybe he went to the first phase of it and had to bounce out for his show, and they're still carrying on without him. Who knows?
And then the Amazing Timmy stumbles through the door, and he's wearing a suit and a tuxedo.
And he's very drunk.
Yes. He walks up to them, and Balky's like, "Oh, amazing Mr. Timmy, I want you to meet my cousin Larry." And he shakes his hand, and Timmy goes, "It's a pleasure to meet you," and promptly just passes out on the floor.
And he's a big dude.
He is a big dude. He's way taller than him.
Yeah.
This guy's easily like 6 feet or more.
Yeah.
200-something pounds. So he passes out, lies down, and Balky just goes, "I've never seen a performer so relaxed before a performance." He thinks he's relaxed and he's impressed.
And Larry tells him, no, he's drunk. And he says, "Help me get him over to the couch." So here's a little bit of mild physical comedy that was also only mildly funny. But no, it's funny.
It was all right. Larry grabs his legs.
They both have to take this like large
This guy is huge. And Balky grabs his arms.
Put him on the couch.
They slide him over to the couch. They try to lift him up, at which point you can see the actor kind of helping with his leg. And
there's no way.
Because this dude is huge. So Balky falls over the back of the couch, rolling him on the couch. And then he comes back up, and then Larry pulls Balky back over the couch. He falls on the floor. There's a little
rolling over the couch
bits. And then Larry goes, "Well, looks like the Amazing Timmy was practicing his disappearing Scotch trick."
And he tells Balky to go get him some coffee. Balky goes, "Cream and sweeten, though, cousin." And Larry goes, Not for me, for him.
For him. Does the for him. And then as Balky is walking away, he stops to the Secret Service guy. And he goes, "Do you want anything?" And the man just looks at him, and Balky runs off.
And when he says, "You want anything?" it's like completely no accent at all.
Yeah, you caught that, did you? A couple of our listeners caught that too.
I was like, what happened? That was so American.
That one line, he drops
want anything?
his accent completely.
Yeah.
So anyways, the Secret Service guy walks over to Larry. He's looking at Timmy passed out. He goes, "Is this the magic act?" Larry's like, "Well, it was." And then the Secret Service guy at this point, he's got an earpiece. He picks up his collar where there's a microphone. He talks into it. He goes, "This is Agent Hansen. Show ended early. Skip the youth center. Take Mrs. Thatcher directly to her next stop." Uh-oh.
At which Larry hears that and he starts to what? Panic.
Of course, he's going to freak out. This is his story. He needs the interview.
He needs her to come there so he could get the interview. The agent's like, "No, if the show ends early, Mrs. Thatcher has a very tight schedule. She goes to the next stop." And he's like, no, she can't do that. And the guy's like, "She can do whatever she wants." And then he tells the agent, no, the show is still going on. There will be a magic act. Make sure she comes, whatever. And so he gets on top of Timmy and he's like shaking him.
That's kind of funny. He's straddling Timmy and shaking him. Wake up. Just like vigorously shaking this giant man.
And he says, "You got to do your magic act or my life is over."
Of course. Everything's going to jump through.
And Balky comes back and hears him say that. He says, "Cousin, I had no idea you were such a magic fan." And then the agent is watching this and he's like, "Okay, that's it. The show's over." Larry's like, no. It's going to go on. In fact, we have another great magician. And he goes, "The great Balkini will go on."
Well, it's funny because Larry goes, "The great Balkini," and he opens his arms to Balky as Balky turns and looks back.
Yeah.
And then turns back to see Larry and just jumps in surprise.
Yeah.
Like caught off guard completely. They're going to force Balkini to perform. fade to black. That's the end of Act 1. Let's talk about a couple of these guys. The ventriloquist, who is maybe not the greatest ventriloquist. He is played by a guy named Bruce Lanoil.
Okay.
He is a noted puppeteer and in-suit performer who worked on the show Dinosaurs.
I love Dinosaurs. What a great show. It
also,
ended too early.
It ended way too early. The last episode is also traumatic.
But Dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
You don't remember? The asteroid comes and kills all the dinosaurs.
Was it only one season?
I don't. It might be a couple seasons. But it literally ends with the end of the dinosaurs.
Oh, that's tragic.
Yeah, it was. I went back and I watched the clip. I was like, this is so dark and crazy. I can't believe they put this on TV.
You know what I loved about that show? Little side tangent.
Not the mama. That was
not
fake.
the mama, but they also handled like real world issues, like through dinosaurs. Like when the sister's tail came in, and it was like like coming into puberty and all the weirdness.
Yeah,
but it was about her tail coming in, and then the brother, like when he was a teenager, he wanted to become an herbivore.
Oh, you wanted to be a vegan, and that was a big problem.
Yeah, but they didn't call it vegan or vegetarian. They called it like herbivore.
Yeah.
And he was just like, they were saying things like give peas a chance.
Yeah.
And it was like, dude, the family was like,
the show's ahead of its time.
Yeah, it was so
Brilliant puppeteer, suit work, and like, it was wild. Primetime TV had this dinosaur, people had dinosaur suits.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bruce was on that, the Golden Girls General Hospital, Muppets Tonight. He has worked in some Looney Tunes and other things. The guy who played Amazing Timmy, the drunk, Nick Lewin, who doesn't get to do any magic on this episode, he's a full-fledged magician.
A magician.
Yes. Yeah. He was on Amazing Stories, Misfits of Science. I loved that show when I was a kid. Dynasty, Kung Fu, The Legend Continues. Yeah. And then the Secret Service agents played by Tony Montero. And he's been on a ton of things. Murphy's Law, Hill Street Blues, Falcon Crest, Highway to Heaven, Knots Landing,
shows.
Beverly Hills 90210.
He does a lot of cop
NYPD,
Secret Service
Blue.
Rules.
I mean, he's the perfect cop guy, right?
All right, so there's our guest cast.
Those are our guests. Before we get to Act 2, listener, you can join this conversation and meet other listeners of the podcast in our fantastic Facebook group. There's a link in the episode description. I post a thread there of the shows ahead of time, so you can watch on 3V and comment and leave your questions and observations and just geek out about Perfect Strangers. It's a very niche, safe place to do it.
Do it. Join us.
Facebook group.
Geek out now.
Join it.
Okay. All righty. Act 2. So now the great Balkini is going on stage. He's wearing a long black cape and
this is the Amazing Timmy's cape and this giant turban,
huge, that's made out of like paper mache or something.
And it's so funny because the whole time it keeps falling off. And I think this was like
turban.
It was real. Like he had problems with his turban. Like I don't think it was planned. The turban just kept falling off.
Multicolored.
He could pick it up.
I don't know. And he says, I am the great Balkini. And he throws open one side of the cape. And we can see now that he's wearing Timmy's, like they stripped Timmy of his suit.
Yes.
He's wearing Timmy's suit. And then a white dove flies out from the cape and it surprises him even. And the children
and the kids start laughing. I also love the shots of these kids because of like what they're wearing.
Yeah, very, very
like it seems so. It reminds me of my childhood. Those clothes.
It was like acid wash, like Cavaricci style jeans, and like a puffy sweater.
And just the sweaters and the style and the haircuts. I'm like, oh my god.
We had literally one girl in the front. I'm like, I had that same outfit.
Yes. Looking at those kids, I was like, oh my god, we dressed like that. That actually, it was pretty. It was at the time, it was accurate.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So he comes out, Dove comes off, kids are already laughing. He's gone, I want to introduce you to my lovely assistant, Cosini. And Larry walks out with this really tight, small gold turban.
It's really funny looking.
That like might have been meant for a female assistant.
And like the back of his like mullety hair is showing in the back, but like.
And he comes out and he sticks his little leg out and he puts his hands out.
Yeah.
And it's a little introduction. His turban is so ridiculous. And now the act has begun. The tricks will start.
So the first trick is he gets a $10 bill from Larry and he rips it up and he puts it in the hat. And then.
Well, there's a little funny bit where Larry takes out the $10 bill. Oh, yeah. Well, first he says, I'm going to rip it up. And then he tries to, and Larry has the bill in his hand.
Oh, he won't let go of it.
And then Balky pulls it, he won't let go one time. He pulls it a second time, he won't let go. Then he picks up the magic wand, taps it on his hand, and then grabs the 10 and it comes right out.
Oh, and Larry looks shocked.
He's like, what?
He's like, how did you do that? So he rips it into many pieces. He puts it into a top hat. And he goes, now I will magically reassemble the $10 bill. And again, he says, Abracapocus Ilia Kazan. And he taps the hat with the wand. And he goes, voila. And he turns the hat over. And all the little pieces still
and all the kids laugh.
And the children are like, ha ha.
And Larry's like, this is what Amazing Timmy taught you. And Becky's like, oh, cousin, I think I knew what went wrong. I think it's supposed to be a 20. Do you have a 20, cousin?
And Larry's like, no. And he's like, I saw it that you do have it. And Larry's like, no. And he's like, let me have it. And he goes, do another trick.
And then Belky goes, for my next trick, I will make this table disappear. And then he just pushes the table that's on wheels off to the side and it goes backstage. And he goes, where do I come up with him? I mean, a little bit. He's doing a fun, like, comedy,
it's for kids.
fake
it's like
magic
a vaudeville,
act. Yeah, totally
like
vaudeville. I kind of was enjoying the vaudeville slapstick, not actual magic act.
So then here's another trick coming. He says, I will make a rabbit appear. For my next trick, I will make a rabbit appear. The table rolls back from off stage
with a basket on it.
And it rolls so fast that it, like, bumps into Balky's hip. And Balky just like looks off stage angry.
He gives a dirty look. For a second, he starts walking off stage and mumbling under his breath at the guy who rolled the table on him. But here's another little
like a basket, a bucket with
it's like a bucket with a handle. And then another funny bit is where he's trying to show everyone there's nothing in the bucket. He opens it up and his turban falls off. He's got to readjust it. So he shows the audience the bucket's empty. He shows Larry the bucket's empty.
And then he closes the top, waves the wand over. It goes, Abracapocus Ilia Kazan, a third time.
Yeah.
And he goes, and voila, a rabbit. And he opens the bucket and he pulls out a rubber chicken and he goes, chicken, a rabbit chicken. And the kids laugh again.
He goes, a rabbit chicken. He goes, cousin, take it away before it bites someone.
He's like, a rabbit chicken, a rabid chicken.
Yeah. And Larry's just like, the rabbit, get to the rabbit as he takes. So Larry walks off stage with this chicken, puts it in the box, and the Secret Service guy is still there, right? He needs to get the details now. He's like, is she here yet?
And he says, no. And then he asks, is the act over yet? And Larry's like, no. And the guy's like, well, it looks that way to me. And we can hear Balky like wrapping up and the applause coming.
And he comes off stage and meets them backstage. He's like, Balky, where are you going? And Balky's like, I'm done. It's over. The show is over. And if I say so myself, Balkini was a hit. The kids were loving Balky. And Larry is now insisting that Balky get back out there and do more. And Balky's like, I have no more.
Yeah.
There's no more tricks.
And then Larry lets it slip. He says, Balky, if you don't go back out there, Margaret Thatcher won't show up.
And at first, Balky, he's about to walk away. He just goes, He turns around and he leaves.
And then he hears it.
Marches back in after it hits him. And he goes, Margaret Thatcher? right in his face.
And Larry says, no, I said body snatcher. Body snatcher. And he tries to tell them that they're showing Invasion of the Body Snatchers later. And that's why he's back out there because of the children.
The children.
The children. Just look at the children.
Think of the children.
And then Balky's just like giving him the stare down, and he's like, okay, fine, I lied.
And so Larry's doing his crying, talking here. Where he's like, I lied.
I lied. I'll tell you the truth. I have a very rare disease.
Balky goes, cousin. He's still like, he's like, all right.
I lied again.
Yeah, so he's doing the whiny Larry crying voice as he drops to his knees, hanging on to Balky.
And he confesses that Mrs. O'Neill let it slip that Mrs. Thatcher was going to come, and she told me not to tell anyone. So naturally, I phoned Wainwright and told him that I'd have an exclusive interview on his desk tomorrow morning. And now she's not coming by. The show's over. I won't get my interview, and Mr. Wainwright's going to fire me. Balky's like, okay, so you're only here for your own selfish reasons.
There's a constant. There's our theme. There's our consistent
and
theme.
You lied to me. And Larry's like, yes. And he says it was for the children. And Balky's like, cousin. And he's like, okay, I'm just a selfish liar. Wow. Some very owning up to his lies here.
He's still crying. He goes, I'm a selfish liar. There's absolutely no reason why you should help me. And Balky goes, well, that's for sure. He agrees. And
being so pathetic right now. Yeah.
And the agent goes, what's the story? And Balky decides he's going to help him out. He
Yeah,
says,
because
the
he's
show
being so pathetic.
will
Balky
go
feels-
on. And Larry's excited. He says, thank you, Balky. Thank you. But Balky goes, I'm going to need your help. And Larry goes, you got it. And they march back out onto stage together. And the Secret Service guy says, show's going on.
Yeah.
Just to let Margaret Thatcher know. Where is she? What kind of schedule is this?
And so Balky and Larry are on stage, and Balky throws open his cape again, but Larry's standing right next to him on that side. So the cape
goes out of that's kind of funny.
Tangled in it, and the kids laugh, and then he frees himself from the cape. And he's like, are you ready for more magic? The kids are like, yeah. He says, for my first encore trick, I will do the famous milk disappearing into the newspaper funnel trick.
Oh, we've seen this. I know this. Newspaper into the funnel, yeah.
And he asks Cosini for the newspaper funnel and the milk, and Larry gets them from a table in the back. And then he goes, now Cosini will place the newspaper funnel into his pants.
And Larry's like, oh, no, he won't.
And Balky's like, oh, yes, he will if he really wants this interview.
I do kind of enjoy Balky using this opportunity.
So Larry puts the funnel down into his pants.
He puts the funnel in his pants.
And the kids laugh, and Balky says, I will now pour the milk into the newspaper funnel. Larry's like, you sure you know what you're doing? And Balky goes, oh, I've never been more sure. And he pours the milk into the funnel, and the milk just goes down Larry's pants.
Yes, the old milk down the pants gag.
There's no magic involved.
Always will make you laugh. The kids are laughing.
Kids love it.
And then Larry lifts up his leg and shakes it a little bit.
Yeah.
To get the last, just milk down the pants. It's wonderful.
And Balky's like, hey, they can't all work. And then he says, I will now attempt to cut someone in half.
Oh, boy. This is a very advanced trick. You notice that there's one of those boxes behind him. It wasn't there before.
On a table.
The long person-sized box that he pulls forward.
And Balky asks for volunteers. All the kids raise their hand, but he turns to Larry and he goes, oh, here's someone. And Larry's like, absolutely not. And Balky again says, well, I guess you don't want that interview.
And he's like, thank you and good night. And he walks off.
And Larry's like, okay. Oh, no. He walks off, and then Larry tries to keep the show going. He's like, wait a minute, wouldn't you rather see a nifty disappearing nickel trick? And the kids are like, no.
They all go, boo. And Larry goes, hey. Like the kids are getting ornery. And then he announces the great Balkini again. And every time Balky comes and leaves, there's like music in the background. Yeah. It's kind of fun. And he comes back in, opens his cape, hits him in the face again, and tells him to get in the box. And Larry, again, is trying to deflect. He goes, wait. Wouldn't it be more fun if one of the kids got into the box? Yes, you would. Wouldn't it? Yes, you would. And they all go, boo,
no, boo.
And Larry's like, you ungrateful little. And Balky goes, get in the box, bozo.
So Larry gets on the table. He climbs into the box. And we see him sitting up in the box with his feet sticking out.
So, yes. First, he sits in, and Balky turns the table so you see the feet end, right?
Yeah.
And then Balky closes the bottom half, and then he picks up this piece of wood that's got two little cutouts for the feet. Shows everyone all the sides, slides it over Larry's feet, locks him in.
Locks him in. Feet are locked.
Then he walks down to the other side, spins the table the other way, so we see Larry lay down, and we see the top of his head. And then we see Balky close.
Outside the other end of the box.
Yes, he spins it the other way, so you can see clearly Larry is lying in this box. He closes the top. He's got another piece of wood with the head cut out. Yeah. And it slots it. Yeah. Yes, slots it right over Larry's head, gives it a firm pounding, which Larry goes, oh. So now Larry's locked in this box, head and feet. And the kids are like, oh my God, he's going to do this.
And he turns the box sideways to the audience. And Larry's like, you sure you know what you're doing? Balky says, relax, cousin. I've seen the amazing Timmy do it 100 times. Never could figure out how it was done. And so he's like, now I'm going to cut Cosini in half. And he walks and he gets this like metal, like sheet divider thing.
Yeah, it's like a big metal blade attached to a piece of wood. You've seen these. They use them all the time when they do the cutting in half.
Finger along the edge.
First he slams it to show that it's solid, runs his finger on the edge to show that it's sharp, and then slides it in between the box.
Where Larry's waist is. And
he goes back and gets a second one.
Yeah.
There's always two because you need one for each side. He does the same thing. He slams on it, runs his hand, and he tries to put it in this one. This one's resisting a little bit.
Yeah, it stops.
He starts to bang on it.
And
Not
then it doesn't go in. Something's blocking it. And then Balky walks over to Cousin Larry's head and grabs him by the ears and then just like pulls his head out to the side. And then the blade drops.
And the blade drops out. It's kind of funny. It was stuck on Larry.
Yeah. And so then he's like, now we'll see if the great Balkini has succeeded. And he unlocks the like connecting part of the box and he pushes the two halves apart.
And he walks through it. It does a big fanfare. And the kids are like, whoa.
He has cut Larry in half. How did he do that?
Larry in half. And then he brings the two pieces closer together. So this is it's a classic trick. You know how they do this?
Is the person just like scrunched up in the top half of the box?
I believe so. And the bottom is usually fake legs.
Feet,
sometimes they fit another person in there if they needed
like
to move.
Wiggle. Yeah.
But I believe it's fake legs and Margolin Baker is like scrunched in the top half. I hope I didn't ruin anybody's. They thought it was actually being cut in half.
Well, they do this funny little gag where like Balky like tickles his ankles or something and he laughs. We don't see his feet moving, but his head laughs.
Yeah, they could have added the touch where they made his feet wiggle, but I think those are just fake legs, so they had no way to do that. But yeah, to prove that it's his legs, he tickles them. And now they do this. It's more advanced where there's actual like motion and like hands go through slots and they move. It's like crazy.
Weird.
Sometimes there's a vertical box. I've seen some advanced cutting people in half tricks.
It's all AI.
Yes, none of this is real.
Okay, so in the middle of this gag, right now, the two halves are separated. Of Larry, and Mrs. O'Neill interrupts and comes on stage and she says, I have a very special surprise to the audience. Mrs. Thatcher will be here momentarily.
Whoa, she's coming.
She would love to say a few words to all of you. Now, I don't know if these like kids know anything about Mrs. Thatcher. They're excited about her.
They clapped.
They clapped for her.
There is applause. So they're like, who? Oh, well, okay.
And now Larry's
British
like,
lady? Great.
Larry's like, I got to get out of this box to get
He's
this
like, Balky, put me back together.
Get me out of here. And Balky's like, okay. And he wheels like he like puts the two sides together again the way they're supposed to be, but he can't get the box to unlock. There's like two locks on either half.
On the top cover, that open.
And he's like,
having trouble.
I can't get it unlocked. And Larry's like, try harder. And before they can try harder, the agent comes on stage with two other agents, and he's like, let's get this junk out of here to clear the stage. And then two other agents take either side of the box and pull them to opposite sides of the stage.
Larry's top half is stage left, and Larry's bottom half is stage right.
Like, no.
Uh-oh. And Larry's just crying, can't do anything. So we transition past Margaret Thatcher's visit.
Yeah, we don't see Margaret Thatcher.
They don't show us the back of her head or a stand-in or anything. We don't know. But we cut back to backstage, and now Balky,
after the show,
Balky is sitting between the two parts of Larry, except they're flipped.
Yeah.
So Larry's legs are to his left, and the top half, and his head. In the box. He's still locked in the box. Is to the right. So Balky is kneeling in the middle, right by Larry's head, and he has a little notepad in his hand.
Little notepad. Yeah. And he's telling Larry, I'm sorry I couldn't get you out of the box. And Larry's just like, wasn't your fault. It's okay. It wasn't your fault. I got what I deserved. I should have been honest with you from the start. I was like, yep. And Larry's like, well, I just wanted the interview so much. And now I have to tell Mr. Wainwright that I didn't get an interview with Margaret Thatcher because I was cut in half and stuck in a box.
That's an embarrassing excuse. Story to tell your boss.
And here comes Balky with a little surprise. He goes, cousin. And he's like flipping through the pages of this notebook. He's like, cousin, I think Mrs. Thatcher would find that really amusing. She's really quite a charming lady. And then Larry's like, what? You talked to her? And he said, oh, yes. And he shows Larry the notepad pages all full of notes. He goes, quite a bit, actually. And Larry's like, you interviewed her? And Balky's like, oh, yeah, sure. And Larry's like, I can't believe this. And he's like kind of dejected again. And Balky's like, well, I am going to need a good writer to turn my interview into an article.
Oh.
Do I have any volunteers? And just like before, he's like, just raise your hands. Raise your hands. Larry's in a box. You could hear his hand like thumping
He's
on
banging
the box.
on inside of the box.
Try to raise your hand. It's like, anybody?
He's whimpering. He's like,
And then he's finally like, oh, here's one. And Larry's just says, thank you. Thank you. Balky says, I hope you can make something out of this, cousin. It's pretty dry stuff. And Larry just says, I'll try my best. And then roll credits. That's not even a joke at the end.
No, there's no joke. There's a little bit of wrap-up music. Larry does not get out of the box. And
we don't see how he gets
credits.
Larry out of the box. And we don't see what kind of interview he even conducted with Margaret Thatcher.
Roll credits.
Roll credits.
Listener, before we give you our thoughts, check out our TeePublic shop, danceofjoypod.com/shop, where you can get fun things with our logo, t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, mugs, cell phone cases, tote bags. Buy it, wear it around.
Do it.
Do it now.
Do it now.
Well, sister, what'd you think of this episode?
My first thought, we just watched this together before recording, and what is the first thing I said? I was like, so what was that about?
Yeah, I don't know what the point of all this was.
Just to have Balky be great. I think the point was to have Balky be the great Balkini and do some magic.
And do some fun magic. I would have loved. But
the magic wasn't even that impressive. So I literally just think it was an opportunity to say the words "the great Balkini." That's all they wanted.
They had an idea. They're like,
but
Balky
they didn't do anything with
does magic. He's the great Balkini. Go.
And so then this story about Margaret Thatcher of
how
all
does
people,
Margaret Thatcher fit into all of this?
Like, because they did explain it as a little convoluted. Like a random British woman runs a charity and she went to school, but like that was kind of a stretch of a story. They could have easily had like an American somebody, like maybe who was like the president. Maybe it was the president in 1990 was Bush Sr.
Yeah, that would have made more sense. Maybe it's Wayne Newton. Maybe it's somebody the kids would be excited by.
Michael Jordan. Who knows? Like some big celebrity.
Well, maybe Thatcher was touring the world after she retired.
Maybe she was big in the news at the time. Yeah, she probably was like big in the news at the time. So they did that. But like watching it now just feels kind of random.
But all in all, I mean, a little bit of physical comedy. There wasn't really that many laughs.
Not a lot of great dialogue. Not a lot of just like
we got to see Dimitri.
Pocus.
We learned about Elia Kazan and Gloria McMillan. And I don't know, him pulling Larry's ears for the thing to slide. That is funny. The little magic trick bit in the beginning
on the couch.
It was just taking forever. There's just like a lot of filler. I don't know.
I feel like they wanted it to be about magic, but the magic wasn't that great. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
It was just kind of meh.
Listen, it's no The Men Who Knew Too Much Part 1 and 2.
No.
That was like an 80s action movie. At least that was something crazy.
Maybe next week will be.
We're halfway through season 6. There's got to be some more gems.
There's got to be some gems coming up. We're hoping.
So yeah, a little flimsy overall. What did our listeners think? I bet they had some comments.
Our listeners kind of felt the same way we did. We'll start with a positive one. Listener cousin Maria Khalaf said it was pretty funny to see Balky punish Larry in this episode.
See, I did like that he took advantage of this situation to humiliate Larry in public and pour milk down his pants. What other chance are you going to get to pour milk down someone's pants? That's great.
Yeah. Listener cousin Pam Hitchcock says this episode should have been titled The Great Balkini because they donated approximately 15 minutes to his act, and that was the best thing about the episode. How many times do we have to see Larry lying and manipulating to get an exclusive photo or interview? That's
Dolly
what
Parton,
they taught
anyone?
him. That's what they taught him. Well, he didn't in journalism school, maybe. I don't know.
That's what they teach you at the Chronicle. Get the interview however you can.
She writes, maybe I'm wrong, but I find it hard to believe a group of middle schoolers are going to be excited to see Margaret Thatcher. Maybe, but like, again, it was the end of 1990 and she had just become former prime minister. So it could have been possible that she was like in the news and even kids were like knowing about her and stuff. I don't know.
Maybe they were studying
maybe she
world
was on
politics.
a tour. Yeah. And her name was out and about. But yeah, fair point.
Gotcha.
Pam Hitchcock loved the not for me, for him, for him delivery. And she also noticed that Balky had no me posing accent at all when he said, do you want anything? She says, I'm hearing that more and more. Maybe he's assimilating, but it would be nice if the writers wrote it more consistently. It was nice that Balky got the interview for Larry, and fun that he made Larry stay in the box while he got it.
So yeah, he left Larry in two pieces in this box for God knows how long while he's just chatting up Thatcher.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny to think about.
What was Larry doing the whole time?
But Larry's just like, Balky? Anyone? Can anybody get me out of here? Like, how long was he? He's still in the box. So that is kind of funny.
That is a funny
I don't know if you blame the writers for that, though. I feel like maybe Bronson just dropped his guard and just let it slip. Yeah. I don't think it's like written in there, like, drop your accent.
Yeah.
I just think it happened, and they just went with it. Maybe nobody noticed. It's okay.
Listener cousin Lauren Miller writes, as much fun as some of these later episodes are, there's also the ones where Larry is a parody of himself, and this is one of them. Still my favorite character, but even I spent at least half the episode shaking my head in disbelief.
He'll never learn.
Yeah,
he does not learn.
Pretty flimsy character development for Larry in this episode. And we have cousin listener cousin Nicole Stoner, who writes, I have to mention there's a Happy Days episode, season 6, episode 14, where a magician also mistakes vodka for water and passes out drunk, so Fonzie has to do the act.
Nice. So the writers are just reusing this plot that they probably wrote. Yeah. They're like, remember when Fonzie did magic?
Let's do that.
Great Belkidi. There's the show.
It's one of these common sitcom tropes, like teaching someone to drive in the kitchen. She writes, Balky's magician hat reminds me of Karnak.
Yes. Do you know who Karnak is?
Is that Johnny Carson's
Yes, it was the
character.
Yes, it was the bit envelope he did with Ed McMahon where he had the envelope and he would say...
He had this big, huge...
He would say the answer. He would say an answer and then he'd open the envelope and read a question. Like he was... like
Jeopardy.
Yeah, like he was mind reading what the answer... And it was always funny, right? It was reverse... punchline first and then set up becoming the punchline. Always brilliant. Kind of like, Jimmy Fallon's thank you notes running thing.
Yeah. It was a desk bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Nicole Stoner also writes, kudos to Larry for not beating around the bush about confronting his lie, but I've noticed something on top of that. I'm beginning to think that in later seasons, Larry doesn't want Balky to find out about his lying moments because he's seen Balky angry, and Balky is kind of threatening when he's upset. Larry's submissive behavior to appease Balky in this episode is reflective of that. Whenever Larry has emotionally manipulated Balky in past episodes, it not only came from a place of wanting to be in control as usual, but in control over someone who, despite some naivete, is physically a lot stronger than he looks. Case in point, he never fights back whenever Balky picks him up or carries him, and he always reverts to a child whenever he becomes whiny Larry in front of Balky. Makes you think if the Appleton siblings' dynamic played a role in some way. Wow, that's some good psychology.
That's some good breakdown.
And we will go now to listener cousin Whitney Smith, who agrees with us on the Margaret Thatcher bit. She writes, also, I didn't get the gag with having to use Margaret Thatcher as the premise or the boost to get Larry to go to the magic show. I don't remember who the president was in 90. It was Bush. But maybe using the president of the United States of America would have been more sufficient than Margaret Thatcher.
It's just so random. I mean, it's not random. What it is. Like,
I think we're right, though. I think it's random to us now. But in December 1990, it wasn't.
But they never showed the person, so they really could have said anybody.
Use anyone.
I don't know how. Maybe they wanted to use Gloria McMillan, and then she's British, and they're Margaret Thatcher. Like that's.
Maybe that's what happened. Yeah,
that's a big guest star. That's a big get.
And finally, we'll end with listener cousin John Adama, who always gives us very insightful notes. However, this time, cousin John writes, I tried to take notes during this episode, couldn't muster the interest. Boy. The ventriloquist who moves his mouth more than the puppets, the idea that kids are excited for Thatcher, and the idea that Thatcher may or may not show up depending on the magic show. That's a really good point. Push this whole thing past fantasy. That's a good point. Like her schedule depends on
it. All revolves around the end of this magic show. So she can talk to the kids. Is that how that works?
Schedules work for important people. But anyway, he continues. Since this episode devotes so much time to the performance, it reminded me of Are You Being Served? Where many episodes ended with a song or dance or puppet show. Feels like a way to pad out the show and have the characters do whatever irrelevant activities with minimal effort. I didn't find this episode all that entertaining, except for the unspoken feud between Balky and the unseen stagehand. Which was so small and quick.
It was so quick. Yeah, it was just rolling the table into Balky and Balky getting mad.
He writes, the magic store tricks fooling Larry insulted Mark Lynn Baker's character and the audience. That's the beginning part, yeah. Balkini didn't really do all that much magic for it being the focus. Maybe he did. I've already forgotten the whole show. He gives it a C-. Yeah, that's a fair score.
Yeah. Those are tricks that like little kids do.
So, we just have to remind everyone that we're getting into the second half of season 6 of 8. And I have a feeling that many of these episodes are going to be like this. So we're just going to have to stick with it. We're going to try to make it
through it.
We're going to try to make our show as entertaining as possible.
Just more tangents. That's all we need.
More tangents.
We might even just stop talking about the whole show entirely by the end of this.
Move on to Family Matters at this point.
No, we got to finish this. Don't be ridiculous was not said.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
And we
do have a Dimitri appearance. There's a redeeming factor for this episode.
He's right there being used in the beginning.
In the stuff.
But that's it.
Do we even want to talk about Perfect Strangers today, which I will remind you is the segment of this podcast where we talk about, can this episode be remade today? Should it be remade today?
First of all, don't do this episode. It's hard to do this because, what was the point? So I don't even know how you update the point.
Larry needed a story, and to get the story, he needed to go to this charity magic show, and they wanted to have Balky do magic. Magic shows are still a thing. They're a bit more sophisticated now.
You know what? As we were reading the comments and everyone's talking about Larry and him manipulating Balky and Balky kind of getting revenge, I had this whole other story entirely pop up in my head. And it's because I've been watching that show Prank Panel on ABC with Johnny Knoxville and Eric Andre.
I don't know it.
So people come up and they're like, I want to prank someone, my friend, because they're horrible and they pranked me. And then they do this elaborate prank on this person. It's really kind of funny. But you could take magic and have Balky. I would like to see Balky prank Larry to get back at all the times Larry has lied to him and manipulated him, and just have this elaborate magic prank on Larry. That's what I would do for this one.
I mean, that's a different show altogether.
It's a whole different show.
I'd say we're not even going to give it a PS today score.
Just skip this one. There was another one where just don't do this.
Just pass.
Just never mind. You'd have to. There's I don't know the point.
It's just a weird,
this is just so flimsy. There's nothing for the structure. It's nothing this is living.
And it doesn't
living on.
Advance either of their characters from any further.
No.
For us. Yeah. And it's a recycled plot from Happy
So
Days
that's the
Forever.
other thing. So you did it twice. Never do this again.
Just retire.
We just come up with a new thing. Maybe they'll come up with a new thing next week, listener.
Hopefully.
Join us when Balky finds a box with a lot of money.
Ooh.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
It's like winning the lottery.
Yeah, they already did that.
They did do that, didn't they?
Almost.
It's like winning money on a game show. Oh, wait, they did that one also. In the meantime, you can support this show with your digdas, with your rubles, with your pesos. Visit our website or just go to danceofjoypod.com/support. There's a little buy us a coffee button. You'll buy us a virtual coffee, a virtual tip jar. Everything goes back into making the show and covering costs and keeping us full of digdas.
Help us get through the rest of this show.
We might need a little more support to finish out this whole, because we're going to finish.
We are committed to finishing out through season 8, 150 episodes of Perfect Strangers.
And I just don't want the end of this show to wear us out where we forget how funny.
You know what I think?
The show was.
I think at the end we have to revisit some of the
we'll do a best of as a wrap up.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be necessary to kind of clean the palate. We'll go back, revisit. Maybe we'll get the listeners to vote on the 5 best episodes, and we can go back and just talk about them. We're going to have to do something because I feel like it's going to leave a bad taste in our mouth if we don't.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the season 7 episodes, and I agree with that.
And and I know like they're engaged, so there's gonna be wedding things.
Yeah,
and eventually there's a house.
There's a house,
and
yeah, change of sets.
I'm really dreading when they leave the apartment, because then it's like that's way past jumping the shark. You're like, you're not even in the apartment anymore. You're in this weird house.
Yeah,
like the dynamic's gonna change. The girls are there.
Yeah.
You would think maybe
we'll find out.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
I want to enjoy these apartment episodes.
For now, we'll just see.
Wow, we
hope that the next episode is a little more entertaining. In the meantime, please check us out, our little show, Dance of Joy Pod, on our website, danceofjoypod.com. On that website, you can find all the places where you can listen to our podcast, where you can like us, rate us, review us, subscribe to us, all that stuff. Also from that website, you can press a little button and leave us a voicemail directly, a voice message. Tell us what magic tricks you did as a kid and what your magician name was. What was your magician name when you were? Did you give yourself a name?
No, I didn't. The Great Imranini. It doesn't really work.
Imrini.
It doesn't really work.
Anyway, tell us what you think Imran's magician name should be.
Yes, somebody come up with one.
Leave us a voice message from the website, or you can send us an old-fashioned electronic mail through the ether at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. And also on our website, you can find all of our social media accounts. Come connect with us, or send us a note, or a little like emoji. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're not on TikTok because whatever. I'm
Threads,
on TikTok though.
no.
Check me out on TikTok. We're not on Threads yet either. Oh yeah, Facebook, X, and IG, I guess.
X. Stop making new social things, everybody. What do you think?
We're too tired to keep up. Anyway, but what is the most important thing our listeners should do, Imran?
Never drink before a magic show? I don't know. Never drink before you get up before magic.
Go to a stag party before a charity magic show.
Always get cut in half, but make sure you can get back put together. No, the most important thing is to share this show with your friends, with other people who are into 80s and 90s nostalgia. Classic TV sitcoms.
Keep the 90s, 80s, and 90s alive, because things are wild in the 2020s. And the 80s and 90s are like a warm blanket.
It feels like a whole different universe thinking about it now. If you look at what's going on now.
Yes.
Did that even happen? Hard to believe.
Hard to believe. But the one thing that's more relevant now is like grown-ups still have a lot of roommates now because the rent is high.
Oh, that's become, actually that's
roommates
become very relevant. Yeah.
Co-living.
Lots
well
of that.
into your adulthood.
Yeah.
Housing is wild.
Yeah, the housing market is insane.
They're not living in big old apartments like Balky and Larry, though.
No. That's a luxury apartment.
All right, that's our show for today. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy. Die, 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 die. Hey, 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 hey.